It was a nice summer day. My 5-year-old son James was playing outside in the backyard of our suburban home. James has always been a quiet boy. He plays by himself mostly. He had never had many friends, but he always had a wild imagination. I was in the kitchen, feeding our dog Fido, when I heard what sounded like James talking to someone in the backyard. I'm not sure who it was, because what could he be talking to? He could have always finally made a friend? Being a single mom, it's hard for me to always keep an eye on my son, so I decided to go outside and check on him. When I went to the backyard, I was a bit confused because James was the only person back there. Was he talking to himself? I could have sworn I heard another voice. "James, it's time to come inside." I called out to him. He came inside and sat down in the kitchen table. It was about lunchtime, so I decided to make him a turkey sandwich. "James, who were you talking to out there?" I asked. James looked up for a moment. "I was playing with my new friend," he said, smiling. I poured him some milk and continued to pry. "As any good mother would. Does your friend have a name?" "Why didn't you ask him to have lunch with us?" I asked. James stared at me for a moment before replying, "His name is Laughing Jack." I was taken aback by what he said. "Oh, that's a strange name. What does your friend look like?" I asked, a bit confused. "He's a clown. He's got long hair and a big swirly nose comb. He's got long arms and baggy pants, with stripy socks, and he always smiles." I realized what my son was talking about, an imaginary friend. I suppose it is normal for kids his age to have imaginary friends, especially when he has no real kids to play with. It's probably just a phase. The rest of the day went by as per usual, and it was starting to get late, so I put James to bed. I tucked him in and gave him a kiss, and made sure to turn on his nightlight before I closed the door. I was pretty tired myself, so I decided to go to bed not long after. I had an awful nightmare. It was dark. I was in some kind of rundown amusement park. I was scared, running through the endless field of empty tents, broken down rides, and abandoned game hunts. The whole place had a horrible look to it. Everything was black and white. The prized stuffed animals all hung from nooses in the game huts, with all sick grins stitched on their faces. It felt like the whole park was looking at me, even though there wasn't another living thing in sight. Then suddenly I began to hear music play. The sound of Pop Goes the Weasel being played on a squeeze box echoed throughout the park. It was hypnotizing. I followed the tune to the circus tent, almost in trance, unable to stop my legs from moving forward. It was pitch black. The only light that came from the single spotlight shining on the center of the big top. As I walked towards the light, the music slowed down. I found myself singing along, unable to stop. All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. The monkey thought 'twas all the fun. The music stopped right before its climax, and the lights shot on. The intensity of the lights was practically blinding. All I could see was a small dark silhouette shuffle towards me. Then another one appeared, and another, and another. There were dozens of them, all coming towards me. I couldn't move. My legs were frozen. All I could do was watch as the haunting figures drew nearer. As they got closer, I could see they were children. As I looked at each one, I noticed they were all horribly disfigured and mutilated. Some had cuts all over their body. Others were severely burnt, and others were missing limbs, even eyes. The children enveloped me, clawing at my flesh, dragging me to the ground, and tearing me inside. As the children tore me apart, I faded away, and all I could hear was laughter, horrible, awful, evil laughter. I woke up the next morning in a cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked over and saw that a few of James's action figures were positioned facing me on top of my nightstand. I sighed. James probably woken up early and placed those there. I gathered up the toys and made my way to James's room. However, when I opened the door, James was sound asleep. I just shrugged and put the toys back into his toy box and headed out to the living room. A little while later, James woke up and I made him his breakfast. He was quiet and seemed a bit groggy. Perhaps he didn't sleep well either. I decided to ask him about the toys. "James, honey, did you put those toys in Mommy's room this morning?" His eyes shot up at me for a moment, then quickly glanced down at the cereal. "Laughing Jack did it." I rolled my eyes in response. "Well, tell Laughing Jack to keep the toys in your room." James nodded and finished up his breakfast. then decided to go out and play in the backyard. I went to relax in the living room and I must have dozed off because I woke up a couple hours later. Shit, I need to check on James. I was a bit worried. It had been over 2 hours and I haven't checked on him. I stepped out into the backyard, but James wasn't there anymore. I was getting nervous, so I called out to him. James! James, where are you? Just then I heard a giggle come from the front yard. I rushed through the gate around the front of the house. James was sitting on the sidewalk. I breathed a sigh of relief and walked over to him. James, how many times have I told you to stay in the backyard? James, what are you eating? James looked up and then reached into his pockets and pulled out a handful of hard candies in colors. This made me very nervous. James, who gave you that candy? James just stared at me, not speaking. James, tell me! Please tell Mommy where you got the candy! James hung his head down and said, Laughing Jack gave it to me. My heart sunk. I kneeled down to look at him in the eye. James, I've had enough of this damn Laughing Jack thing. He's not real. Now this is a very serious situation, and I need you to know who gave you the candy. I could see my son's eyes tear up. But Mama, Laughing Jack did give me the candy. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. James has never lied to me, but what he's telling me is impossible. I made him spit out the candy, and I threw the rest away. James appears to be fine. Maybe I'm just overreacting after all. He could have gotten it from Tom and Linda from next door, Mr. Walker down the street, either way. I'm gonna have to keep a closer eye on James. That night I put James to bed as usual and decided to go to bed early myself. I was suddenly awoken up by a loud bang coming from the kitchen. I sprung out of bed and hurried downstairs. When I got to the kitchen, I was horrified. Everything on the counters had been thrown on the floor, and our dog Fido hung dead from the light fixture. His stomach was cut open and stuffed with candy, the same type that James was eating earlier that day. My shock was quickly broken by a sharp scream coming from James's room, followed by loud crashes. I quickly grabbed a knife from the drawer and moved up the stairs with the speed that only a mother whose child's in danger could have. I burst through the door and flicked on the lights. Everything in the room was knocked over and tossed onto the floor. My poor son in his bed crying and shaking with fear. A pool of urine staining the sheets. I scooped up my child and ran out of the house and went next door to Tom and Linda's house. Luckily, they were still awake. They let me use their phone and I called the police. It didn't take them long to arrive, and I had explained what had happened. They looked at me as if I were crazy. They searched the house, but all they found was a dead dog and 2 trashed rooms. The officer told me that someone had probably gotten into the house and done this right before making a quick escape when they heard me coming up the stairs. I knew it wasn't true. All doors were locked and none of the windows were open. Whatever was in my house didn't come from outside. The next day, James stayed inside. I didn't want him to leave my sight. I went to the garage and found his old baby monitor and set it up in his room in case if something comes into it tonight. I was going to be able to hear it. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife from my drawer and put it on my nightstand. Imaginary friend or not, I am not letting anything hurt my little boy. Soon enough, night came. I put James to bed and he was afraid, but I promised him that I wasn't going to let anything happen to him. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and turned on the nightlight. Before closing the door, I whispered to him, "Good night, James. I love you." I tried to stay up as long as I could, but after a few hours, I felt myself drifting off. My baby would be safe for the night, and I needed to sleep. Just as I lay my head on the pillow, I heard a soft noise come from the baby monitor. I had put on my nightstand. At first, it sounded like an interference, like some kind of radio would make. Then it turned to a soft moan. Was James asleep? I then heard it. The laugh from my nightmare. That horrible laugh. I sprung up from the bed and grabbed the knife from under my pillow, and I rushed over to James's room and creaked the door open. I tried the night light switch, but it wouldn't come on. I took a step in, and I could feel the warm, thick liquid on my feet. Suddenly, James's nightlight came on, and I could see the absolute horror laid out in front of me. James's body was nailed up on the wall, the nails piercing through his hands and feet. His chest was cut open wide and his organs hung down from the ground. His eyes and tongue had been removed with most of his teeth. I was disgusted. I could hardly believe this was my baby boy. I then heard it again, this soft, desperate moan. James was still alive. My baby, my poor baby. in so much pain, barely clinging to life. I ran across the room and vomited on the floor, but my sickness was interrupted by a horrible cackle coming from behind me. I spun around while still wiping the bile from my mouth. Then out of the shadows emerged a fiend, responsible for his horror, Laughing Jack. His ghost white skin and matted black hair hung to his shoulders. He had piercing white eyes surrounded by dark black rings. His twisted smile revealed a row of sharp, jagged teeth, and his skin didn't look like skin at all. It almost looked like rubber or plastic. He wore a patchy black and white clown outfit with striped sleeves and socks. His body itself was grotesque, his long arms hanging down past his waist, and all the way he was poised to made him look almost boneless, like a rag doll. He let out a sickening laugh as if to let me know he was pleased with my reaction to his work. He then turned around and slowly in front of James began to laugh more at the horrific sight he laid out. That was enough to make me shake me from my terror. I snapped, "Get away from him, you bastard!" I rushed him at the monster, raising the knife above my head and stabbed down at him. But as soon as the knife touched him, he disappeared into a cloud of black smoke. The knife passed right through and pierced James's still beating heart, splashing the warm blood on my face. No, what have I done? My baby! I killed my baby! I soon immediately fell to my knees, and I could hear sirens in the distance growing louder. My boy, my sweet baby boy. I promised Mommy would protect you, but I failed. I'm sorry, James. I'm so sorry. The police soon arrived to find me in front of my son, still wielding a knife covered in my baby's blood. The trial was short. Insanity. I was placed in a precarious house for criminally insane, where I have been for the past 2 months. It's not bad here. The only reason I'm awake now is because someone is playing Pop Goes the Weasel outside my window. I'll talk with the order lines about him in the morning.